some really exciting outcomes to discuss. So I'll just get us going like we have been, and let you take us around the 985, and we'll start in 5A Division One.
Yeah, Marshall. I got in late last night. We were obviously in Baton Rouge and long night, kind of saying bye to seniors and stuff. But I couldn't watch enough games last night when I got home. And the one game I couldn't find anything on was the St. Paul's Evangel game. So I'll get those stats this morning from Coach. Coach Sears will send me those over. But I think looking at the score, and this is just my assumption here, I think that this is kind of the way that St. Paul's would have had to have won it, was holding Evangel to 34 points, right? That's an accomplishment to me. And I don't know how they scored those. If I had to guess, it's not all 80-yard drives. It's probably some things that happen there, but their defense is really good. I have to say this about St. Paul's. This one's hard for me because we've seen so many of these kids for the last 3 years be really good on this stage, right? The Cody Corrales and Brennan Villa and Troy Willis Jr. and Brett West. And you can go on and on and on and on and on. Aiden Brooks. And there's names and names and names that have been really good for a long time. So, we say it all the time, all good things come to an end. And it was a great run for St. Paul's. They went up to Evangel, and from what I can see, it looks like they played a really good game. I mean, I'm not going to say if you lose by 3 touchdowns, it's a good game, but when you hold Evangel to 34 points,
exactly,
that's impressive, right? The next game on the list, Mandeville and Neville, I did get to watch this one in its entirety at about 1:00 this morning, and that game is a lot closer than that score. It was 10-7. Neville's up with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter. And some weird things happen. Neville ends up getting 2 touchdowns before the half, right? And then they come out in the second half, and it's a 7-7 ball game. Each team scores a touchdown. I think what happened watching film in this game was what we thought would be Mandeville's, maybe not downfall, but the thing that they've struggled with this year was who's going to be in that running game outside of Crew Calora. Marshall, they were essentially 5 wide this entire time. So the entire game, they're 5 wide. They did a lot of good stuff, making their passing game part of the intermediate running game. But Crew Calora played well. It's the same names. Jake Giacchetti had a couple really big catches and yards after run. Luke DeMello had a great game. Jax O'Quinn, he did get a couple carries in the backfield, played a defense as well. And I have to say this, the Mandeville defense played really, really well. They didn't give up any big chunk stuff. The thing that I noticed is when Neville did kind of, I won't say impose their will, but they ran fast on offense. They got up to the line of scrimmage quickly, and it wasn't to throw the ball, it was to run the ball. And, they didn't make substitutions, so Mandeville can't make substitutions. And when you're getting 5-6 yards of carry as a defense, I consider it kind of a good job, right? It's a stop. But when they're not making substitutions and they run that thing 10, 12 times in a series, it's really hard on your kids. But really proud of Mandeville for getting to where they did. Ben Hendricks went down in week 1, senior quarterback who was a 3-year starter. And essentially for most teams, that could have been it over. They brought a freshman quarterback in. And as good as Crew Calora was, and we've praised him all season, I have to give credit to all the guys around him. Mandeville proved that they're a program, that they're not a one-guy thing. They lost Nate Shepard last year, who in my mind is, I hate to say this because I'll touch on this in a minute, but he'll be the number 1 portal running back if he goes. And, I hope he doesn't because it's what I believe in. But if he does, I think he was the best running back in the state last year. That if he's not in Mandeville and getting the pub that he needed, everybody sees that. But great job by Coach Jones and the crew. I thought it was a fantastic season for them and something to build on. They've got a lot of young guys and a lot of people coming back. So
yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah. So they played a lot of young guys on defense. Now they've got some senior leadership, but Dylan Henry, He'll be one of the best defensive backs in the state. He was a junior. In the secondary, they've got some other guys. Montrell White, who's a senior, he just committed. They'll lose him, and they'll lose a couple big guys in the front. But, Mandeville, it seems like they got 120 kids in the program. So, big offseason for them and continue to move. And then offensively, obviously, you have Crew Calor coming back for his sophomore year, which we're going to say that for the next 3 years, which sounds insane. But Crew Calor coming back for his sophomore year, and Luke DeMello and Jake Giacchetti, their two leading receivers, are both back as well. So, and now it's an offense where the whole offseason is predicated around, hey, now I've got a different type of quarterback who can throw it, and you can install some different things and then look for some different run game stuff. So I think that's going to be fantastic. Huge shout out to Franklinton. Coach Salt, he just wins, man. He's a guy, he's got a great group of kids. They've great seniors. We talked about this previously. They've been here before. They know what it feels like. They know what it looks like. They have a home game in round 2, which is extremely beneficial to them. They're going to head to North DeSoto, which is a monumental feat. I think North DeSoto in any division is one of the best teams in the state. But, if you're Franklinton, you've got guys, and I say in the playoffs, depth is essential. But what you see is the people with top end talent are who essentially pulls away in the end, right? And we saw that in a couple places last night. We'll go over that. But huge shout out to Coach Salt and offense coordinator Matt Hughes. A pretty neat thing. DeMikes McLean, a quarterback, a wide receiver for them, went over 1,000 yards on the season. First time in the history of Franklinton High School. So 104 years, they haven't had a receiver go over 1,000 yards, and DeMikes McLean does it. Jaden Burkhalter, I think, is one of the best juniors in the state. He'll be a very highly recruited receiver as well. But last night was pretty neat. Dalton Freeman, who's a tight end, gets a rushing touchdown kind of in the end zone. He's a big kid. He's a big athletic kid. And I have to give credit to this. Coach Matt Hughes, and I asked Coach Matt, their offensive coordinator, about this when I had him on Coach's Corner. Colin Stewart, he's a senior, and he's kind of that third receiver. He plays on the opposite side a lot of DeMikes McLean and Jaden Burkhalter. They kind of put them in duo pairs a lot on the same side of the line to make them cover levels, right? In my mind, that's why they do it. But Colin Stewart has been really essential to them. He's a senior. And Coach Hughes said, look, Mike, he's not an exceptional athlete. He doesn't do anything he's not this great thing, doesn't do anything great, but he works his tail off. He knows the offense. He's a team guy. And he said, I'm not afraid to go to him on third down. Well, last night, I want to say 4th and 13. He catches a ball for a first down, and then near the goal line, breaks a tackle and scores a touchdown. So I love that stuff. A team kid, a senior who doesn't get the attention a lot of other people get, but a huge night for him. And obviously Jacob Crane. I say it all the time. If you've got Jacob Crane, you got a shot to win. So he'll be missed when this whole thing's over. So hopefully we're shaking hands in the dome and telling him, hey, what a fun ride. He made it for everybody, because he's been sensational.
Yeah, they'll get a great game in Stonewall next week. So,
and that's look. I have to admit to you, I don't know that Northwest area very well. So I put in my map this morning, North DeSoto, to see how long that would take to get there. And I blinked a couple times. Like, yep, that's right. It's up there.
You'll be able to smell Texas from Stonewall for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, and then staying in that bracket in 4A, Cecilia, defending champs, goes to Lakeshore. You and I were excited about that matchup just because the kind of the complementary styles, or on a simpler level, just the way both of those quarterbacks run really well. But a high scoring game and a good win for Cecilia over the Titans. Yeah,
and I won't say the game surprised me. I don't think that's the right word to say. I would never envision Lakeshore giving up that many points because they're so sound defensively. But watching that game again last night, it was two teams that were just running quarterback, not even RPOs, just quarterback runs, right? And Cecilia loses Colin Dore Well, I'll say they lost him. Before they lost him, he ran for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns early in that game. Braylon Kaye comes in and plays quarterback. He plays quarterback. He has 23 carries, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was 7 of 16 for 188 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was their junior wide receiver backup quarterback, right? And to me, and talking to Coach Salt, in the summer, and we talked about Cecilia in the Dome, nothing says Cecilia more than that. That's the type of athletes that they have that can just be plugged in, and they're playmakers. I said it on your show earlier this week. I think it was Tuesday, but I said it. Hey, Cecilia, you can wear whatever you want to the playoffs. We know who you are. You can wear that 6-4 record and we're 13 seed and it's a down year. Nope, you're Cecilia, and they showed it last night. But hats off to Lakeshore on a phenomenal season. Coach Indest. I don't care who they're going to have Brody Loudermilk back. He'll be one of the best players in the area for sure. He'll be a great fun one to watch again in his senior year. And Lakeshore's senior class reminds me a lot of North Lake's senior class and St. Paul's senior class. There's a bunch of guys that have done this for 2 and 3 years. It hasn't been, hey, their first time or, a little bit played as a junior, the Oja Gross and Dylan Cusacks and Sean Brown and Cade Stevens, who we did a story on Cade Stevens. I encourage you guys to go read that. It's a neat story and, impressive student athlete for sure. But there's a big group of that, Coach Indest is not going to tell anybody this, but they lost a couple athletes this season due to injury. Kyle Gegenheimer, who I think is one of the best athletes in the state. He's sensational. I'm never going to say they win the game if they have those guys, but it was going to be hard for them to match up outside athlete on athlete without the guys they lost. I'll say that because in the box, Lakeshore they've got some dudes, and there's nobody that's 6'3", 240 pounds, but they play ball and they're really good. And Coach Indest has made that place fun. He's made it a winner. Those kids that are going to step into those positions, you're not going to see a lot of drop off because Coach Indest doesn't allow it on Mondays. He doesn't allow it on Wednesdays. He doesn't allow it on Saturday mornings. And that's what I love about him and that program. But great season for them. I don't think the bye week really had anything to do with it. I think they got a little healthy there. I think Cecilia just had an athlete. And sometimes that one guy in the playoffs can that's what makes the difference. Just dominate. You've seen it for years.
Yeah. So Franklinton moves on in D2 non-select, and St. Paul's, Mandeville, and Lakeshore will end their football seasons in the regional round. Let's take a look here at Division III for the North Shore area. We mentioned Sumner will be moving on to the quarters, but really some just quality kind of second round matchups for all these teams in D3, whether it's non-select or select.
Yeah, and it's funny because we brought this up, and I had even brought up Division III select. I believe it was late last night, and trying to kind of look at those brackets, and I went, oh my, we talked about it. I don't know that there's a better 8 teams in a single region, right? A single division than Division III select. But first, I want to touch on St. Helena. Phenomenal season for those guys. They make it to the regionals there. They win a playoff game. They go to Gina, and Gina can put up 70 points on anybody. St. Helena's got some really, really talented kids. They've got some young kids that'll be back as well. I think they might be in a different district. I don't know. We've got to look at that. But they'll be exciting to watch. Their head coach this year, I think they've had 3 head coaches in 4 years, and I hope he stays because I think he's really good for those kids. He understands the culture there and speaks their language and holds them accountable. And that place can be really, really special. They've got some kids that are different. You go in those rural areas and you see some of those athletes, and the athleticism of those kids is not what I'm talking about. They're different. they're great human beings. They do things right. They want to do things right. They want good coaching, and they got it this year. And you see what they did. So they get some consistency there. You're going to be hearing from St. Helena for a while.
Yeah, similar to AME. And those two schools may not like the comparison, but right, it can be done.
Yep. Moving on to the Dunham North Lake Christian game. The score says it all, but it doesn't tell you the story. It was an interesting game. I think defensively, Marshall, the game plan worked. Coach, gosh dog it, I'm blanking on his name at Dunham. Coach Weiner, he said after the game, it's probably the lowest passing total that Elijah's Havens had in the last couple of years. So defensively in the secondary, you got to give our guys credit. They played the game plan really well and kind of shut them down. We went into that game without Aiden Riley. For those that watch on tape, he's number 30. He's probably our most important guy in offense. He was in concussion protocol from last week, so that one kind of hurt us. But we lost Trace Crane, who's kind of our leader, linebacker, fullback. Within the first series, tore his knee up pretty good. So, he'll be having surgery on that. And then we lost Jordan Willis shortly after that. So in a small school, when you lose your top 3 guys on defense, it paid dividends for Dunham for sure. But give our guys credit. Things fell apart, but you saw some kids keep fighting. Coach Willis has done a great job with the culture there and creating a culture. North Lake Christian will be back. Before I coached there, you see him every year in the playoffs and, having these good regular seasons. And I wouldn't expect anything less. I think you're going to see some new names now, but I think, the Wolverine on the side of the helmet's going to do what it does. But, huge game by Cam Castnave. He actually ran the ball. It's the fourth quarter. And Marshall, I'm so proud of him. I've never seen a kid that practices as hard as him, and it translates. There's a reason he does what he does. It's the fourth quarter. We're down 50 points, and he's dragging 3 or 4 guys. Like there's no give up, and he busted his butt. But there's a big group like that, and really proud of him. So great season by North Lake Christian. Dunham will make a run. They've got 2 kids that are my size, Marshall, number 20 and number 44 that play the defensive line, and they penetrate gaps. And you are not going to be quick enough to stop them. So it's the first time I saw it on film of what they did last night. But whoever plays them now knows, like, if you're going to pull somebody, they're going to feel it quicker than you can feel it. I promise you that.
They'll get Newman next week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and then Lafayette Renaissance getting kind of a newer program but a good coaching staff, and goes against a similarly established program in AME, gets a win there.
And look, this one surprises me a little bit because I think AME can win this game. It's not a game that AME can't go get a victory out of. But that Lafayette Renaissance offense is really good. So we hyped up AME's defense all season, and now you know why, right? You went to Lafayette and you held that offense to 18 points. That's impressive. That's, in my mind, that's the victory outside of the loss, but that showed who AME was defensively. And it showed that the competition they played here was really good too, right? And those things go a long way in a program and culture and in AME being who AME is. They didn't go in and lay a turd. Those guys went in and fought against one of the best teams in the state.
Yeah. And you mentioned I can't wait to kind of discuss this matchup, Calvary and Sumner, but as far as Sumner holding serve at home and getting a win in the regional round, looks like, just following the score last night, that Slaughter hung around for a majority of that game.
It was. I think it was 21-20. With a little bit of time left in the second quarter. And that's not surprising. Slaughter's a good football team, right? Jewel Sumner, you see it a lot in the second round of the playoffs where teams come off of a bye. And it's not that you have a lull, but game speed gets you a little bit. You haven't seen it in a couple weeks. And I think that's a little bit of a byproduct of what happened. But the second half, who Jewel Sumner is in their front sevens on both sides of the ball is elite. And I mean that, elite. So if a game's close, my money is on Jewel Sumner in the second half to dominate the line of scrimmage. And that's what they do. And it's not because they're bigger than everybody else. Their technique in that wing T offense, I tell people all the time, like, I love what Pope does. Pope runs kind of a tight wing T, and it's more of a power-based wing T, kind of like a South Lafourche ran 25 years ago. Jewel Sumner has a little bit wider spread. They've got guys who pull, but their footwork, we talk in the wing T offense, we talk about the perfect play. Every play has to be perfect. There's a lot of things that have to happen right sequentially. That I don't know that anybody teaches it better than Coach Career. The product is you're a 3 seed, you're hosting in the quarterfinals. You're now 19-2 in the last 2 seasons, 20-2 in the last 2 seasons. Yep, you're good. Yeah. and they've got, we talk about playoff time, they've got guys who are guys. You hear me talk about Jamon Dyson all the time. If he's even, he's leaving, and he's a speedster, but he's a bigger kid too to run you over. And then Jeremiah Brooks, their fullback, he's a two-way guy. He's got 800 yards rushing on the season as well. So, and I think going into last night, I could be wrong, but I think Jamon Dyson had 14 touchdowns and Jeremiah Brooks had 13. So, and they've got a quarterback who is very athletic, and when they need to throw it, they can. They just don't need to.
Yeah, well, and Calvary similarly presents that kind of matchup from what I've seen. Very physical and can pop on defense. They've got Miles, Zion Miles, a talented back that's come on, and then got an amazing receiver out there on the outside, Braylon Huglin. And so as Hudson Price, their sophomore quarterback, kind of rounds into form, that sets up for a really good matchup between the Cowboys and the Cavaliers in the quarterfinals. And then also from the North Shore, we've got Franklinton going up to North DeSoto next week. That'll be, two teams that have made runs in that bracket. And gosh, between Sumner, Calvary, North DeSoto, and Franklinton, you'll have your work cut out for you the next few days trying to preview those games and and hype up those quarterfinals.
And Marshall, look, the winner of that North DeSoto Franklinton game gets Cecilia. So kids aren't going to look ahead. They got to go win a game, but I know that Franklinton wants that again.
Yeah,
I know Coach and those guys want that again. But
you're right.
You got to go. You got to go kill the king first.
It'll be fun to look ahead, and we'll do that. But it was certainly enjoyable and beneficial getting to look back to last night with Mike here recapping Marshall, the regional round.
I've got a couple Crescent City area, New Orleans area games that I want to touch on real quick.
Yeah.
Hahnville and Destrehan both lose. Destrehan scores late to get within 2, and I think they fail the 2-point conversion. They lose 21-19 to Ouachita Parish. I just call them Ouachita, but apparently it's Ouachita Parish.
Yeah, either one.
There's no confusion there, right? There's a Ouachita and there's a Ouachita Christian, right?
Same with Union Parish, Franklin Parish. That's
yeah. And then Hahnville in overtime has to go for 2 and fails that attempt at Parkway. That was a football game. Both of those games were absolute, must-see TVs. The matchups next week in Division I Select, Marshall, are prime time. I don't know. Cass says it every week of the playoffs is his favorite week, but I think the quarterfinals, when you have those 4 games, it's insane. Carr is going to host Evangel. Catholic Baton Rouge is going to host Ash.
Yeah.
St. Aug will be hosting Rummel, and John Curtis will be at Turlings Catholic. Wow.
Find me a bad game. Yeah.
Wow. Like if I could, I hope somebody plays a Saturday and a Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need. And look, we said this earlier in the season. Somebody in that Catholic League who's going to finish third or fourth in the Catholic League is going to make a run. Here we go. Three teams in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And watch,
And like I said, we'll stay up way too late and get up way too early over the next few days trying to handicap those games. And yeah, and you're right. I mean, yeah, you just look at these quarterfinal rounds, and it continues to bring you to the point where, gosh, I don't want anybody to lose this game. But
and watch out for Rummel, man. I mean,
yeah, good showing on the road last night.
They did at Tioga, and they played Carr better than anybody. That St. Aug game is going to be fantastic because Rummel's a different team right now than they were 5 weeks ago too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So next week, let's certainly plan on trying to maybe zoom in a little bit or click or two on the 504 and try to bring that to the people as well. Mike McMillan with the Northshore Prep Report, always on point. It goes from the sidelines on Friday nights to the desk Saturday mornings, and he's sharp as a tack as always. So, Mike, appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon, my man.
Thanks, Walter. Appreciate it. Y'all have a blessed weekend, man.
Yes, sir. You too.